The galaxy had learned to fear the Crexani Empire 300 years ago. Every star system knew their name. Every species whispered stories of their terrible strength. The Crexani were 8 feet tall with thick armor covering their skin. Their muscles could crush steel. Their claws could cut through metal like paper. They came from Crex Prime, a world of fire and poison where only the strongest could survive. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his warship, the Iron Fang. His dark eyes looked out at the stars. Behind him, his warriors prepared for another conquest. They had never lost a battle. They had never met a species that could stand against them. The Crexani were the apex predators of space, and everyone knew it. The ship's scanner officer approached with careful steps. All Crexani moved carefully around Vextar. He was the strongest of them all. "Commander," the officer said, "we have found new signals. A small blue planet in System 774. Vextar turned his massive head. His armor caught the light from the stars. "What do the scans show?" "The beings call themselves humans, Commander. They appear weak. Soft skin, no natural armor, small size. Their world looks almost pleasant. Green lands, blue water, mild temperatures." Vextar made a sound that was almost laughter. "Another easy world to add to our empire. How many ships do they have?" "Very few, Commander. Their technology is basic. They should not be able to fight us at all." The other Crexani warriors heard this news and felt excitement. Easy conquests meant more glory, more territory for their empire. They had conquered the rock-hard Zelani people. They had beaten the poisonous Vorthak. They had crushed the metal-skinned Corvians. These soft creatures called humans would be nothing. Light years away, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the human survey vessel Horizon. He was a normal man by human standards. Brown hair, average height, no special. Powers. His ship was small and built for exploration, not war. With him were pilot Lisa Park and engineer Ben Carter. They were good people doing their job, looking for new worlds and new life among the stars. "Captain," Lisa called from her pilot station. "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." Jake looked at his screens. "What kind of strange?" "Ships, sir. Big ones, really big ones. They're heading straight for Earth." Ben Carter looked up from his engineering console. His face was worried. "Captain, these readings don't make sense. These ships are huge. They're built like flying fortresses. I've never seen anything like them." Jake felt his stomach drop. First, contact with aliens was supposed to be a happy moment for humanity. They had dreamed of meeting other intelligent life for generations, but these ships didn't look friendly. They looked like they were built for war. "Lisa, get us closer, but stay hidden. I want to know what we're dealing with." The Horizon moved carefully toward the alien fleet. As they got closer, the sensors revealed more details. The ships were dark and covered in armor. They had weapons that could destroy cities. They moved in perfect formation like a pack of hunters. "My God," Ben whispered. "Look at the size of those things. Our biggest warships are like toys compared to them." Jake activated the communication system. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Horizon. We are a peaceful exploration ship. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "I am Commander Vextar of the Crexani Empire. You will surrender your world immediately. Resistance will only make your deaths more painful." The 3 humans looked at each other. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. "Commander Vextar," Jake said carefully, "we are willing to talk. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution." This time the alien voice had a different tone. It sounded almost amused. "Peaceful? You are prey animals from a soft world. You have no weapons that can hurt us. You have no strength to resist us. Why would we talk when we can simply take what we want?" Lisa's hands moved over her controls. "Captain, I'm reading their ship's data. These aliens, they're not like anything in our files. Their homeworld has temperatures that would kill most Earth life. The gravity is 3 times what we're used to. The atmosphere is full of poison. How did anything evolve to survive there?" Ben added. "And look at their biology scans. They're massive, heavily armored, incredibly strong. They're built like living tanks." Jake realized they were looking at something humanity had never faced before. These weren't just aliens. They were predators from a world that would be hell to any human. They had evolved to be perfect killers, and now they were coming to Earth. Commander Vextar studied the scans of the human ship. It was so small and fragile. The humans inside looked even weaker than he had expected. They had no armor, no natural weapons, no obvious strength. Their homeworld looked like a paradise compared to the harsh reality of Krex Prime. How did such weak creatures even survive to develop space travel? He wondered aloud. His second-in-command, war leader Kexval, stepped forward. "Perhaps they had no predators on their soft world, Commander. They may have never needed to become strong." Vextar nodded. It made sense. The Krexani had earned their strength through millions of years of survival on the deadliest world in known. Space. Every day on Krex Prime was a battle against the environment, against predators, against death itself. Only the strongest lived to reproduce. Only the most ruthless survived to adulthood. These humans had clearly never faced such challenges. They were soft because their world was soft. They were weak because they had never needed to be strong. They were prey animals who had somehow learned to build machines. "Prepare the invasion force," Vextar commanded. "This conquest will be over quickly. We will add another world to our empire before the next moon cycle." The Krexani fleet moved toward Earth like a storm of death and metal. They had conquered 47 worlds before this one. They had faced species with acid blood, creatures that could phase through solid matter, beings that could control minds with their thoughts. All of them had fallen before Krexani's strength. These humans would be no different. They would surrender or they would die. It was that simple. But as the two species prepared for their first meeting, neither understood what they were truly facing. The Krexani saw only soft prey from an easy world. The humans saw only impossible predators from their worst nightmares. Neither side realized that this encounter would change everything they thought they knew about strength, survival, and what it truly meant to be the apex predator in a dangerous galaxy. The Krexani dropships fell from the sky like burning meteors. They landed in the hills outside Copper Falls, Montana, a small mining town with only 3,000 people. The ships were huge and black, crushing trees and rocks when they touched. Down. Steam rose from their hulls as the hot metal met the cool mountain air. Sheriff Kate Brooks was drinking coffee in her office when the first reports came in. She was a tough woman who had grown up in these mountains. She had seen bear attacks, mining accidents, and terrible winter storms, but nothing had prepared her for the calls flooding her radio. "Sheriff, there are ships in the sky. Big ones. They're landing near the mine." Kate grabbed her hat and keys. "I'm on my way. Keep everyone calm." At the Copper Falls Mining Company, Foreman Rick Taylor was trying to keep his workers safe. He was a big man with strong hands from 30 years of mining work. When he saw the alien ships landing, his first thought was to protect his people. "Everyone, get inside the main building," he shouted. "Lock the doors and stay away from the windows." The Crexani ships opened with a sound like thunder. Ramps dropped down and the aliens stepped out. The humans watching from hiding places gasped in fear. The Crexani were huge, much bigger than any human. Their skin was like dark metal armor. Their claws gleamed in the sunlight. They moved like hunters looking for prey. Commander Vextar walked down the ramp of his command ship. He breathed the earth air and found it strangely sweet compared to the poisonous atmosphere of his homeworld. The gravity was weaker too, making him feel even stronger than usual. This world would be easy to conquer. Behind him came 20 of his best warriors. Each one was a veteran of many battles. Each one had killed enemies on a dozen different worlds. They expected this conquest to be over in hours. Sheriff Kate Brooks drove her patrol car up the mountain road toward the landing site. Her hands shook on the steering wheel, but she kept driving. It was her job to protect the people of her town. Even if she was scared, she had to try. She parked her car at the edge of the clearing and stepped out. The aliens turned to look at her. Kate had never felt so small in her life. The closest alien was twice her height and probably weighed 4 times as much. His armor looked like it could stop bullets. His claws looked like they could cut her in half. But Kate Brooks had grown up in Montana. She had faced down drunk miners, angry bears, and winter storms that could kill. She was scared, but she did not run. "I'm Sheriff Kate Brooks," she called out, her voice carrying across the clearing. "This is Earth. We come in peace. Can we talk?" The Crexani warriors looked at each other. Some of them made sounds that might have been laughter. Here was this tiny creature, soft and weak, trying to negotiate with them. It was almost amusing. Vextar walked toward the human female. Each step shook the ground slightly. He stopped just a few feet away from her. Kate had to look up to see his face. His eyes were like black stones. "I am Commander Vextar of the Crexani Empire," he said in perfect English. His voice was deep and rough. "Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender or you will die. There are no other choices." Kate felt her heart pounding, but she stood her ground. "There are families here, children. Surely we can work something out." "Families mean nothing to us," Vextar replied. "Children mean nothing to us. Only strength matters. You have no strength." At the mining facility, Rick Taylor was watching through binoculars. He saw the sheriff talking to the alien leader. He saw how huge and dangerous the aliens looked. He made a decision that would change everything. "Listen up, everyone," he said to his workers. "These aliens think we're weak. Maybe we are compared to them. But this is our home. These are our families. I'm not going to just give up without a fight." Danny Lopez, a young miner with a wife and baby daughter, stepped forward. "What can we do, Rick? Look at them. They're like walking tanks." "Maybe," Rick said, "but tanks can break. Everything can break if you hit it hard enough in the right place." Amy White, the head of mine security, checked her rifle. "I've got weapons in the security office, not much, but something." "Good," Rick said. "Amy, get the weapons. Danny, you know the mine tunnels better than anyone. Can you get people out through the back passages?" "Sure can," Danny replied. "But what about you?" "Someone needs to buy you time," Rick said simply. Back at the landing site, the talks were not going well. Commander Vextar was getting impatient. The human female kept asking for mercy, for time, for consideration. These were concepts that meant nothing to the Crexani. They took what they wanted. They killed what resisted them. It was simple. Enough. Talk, Vexatar growled. You will take us to your leaders. You will show us your defenses. You will help us conquer your world. Or you will die right here. Kate looked around at the alien warriors surrounding her. Their weapons were bigger than anything she had ever seen. Their armor looked like it could stop a tank shell. But something deep inside her, something that had kept her ancestors alive through ice ages and disasters, refused to give up. No, she said quietly. The word hung in the air like a challenge. The Crexani warriors stopped moving. They had heard this word before, but never from such a weak creature. Usually only the strongest enemies dared to say no to them. Vextar tilted his massive head. What did you say? I said no. Kate's voice was stronger now. This is our world. These are our people. You want it, you'll have to take it. The first shot came from the mining facility. Amy White's rifle cracked across the valley. The bullet hit one of the Crexani warriors in the shoulder. It didn't penetrate his armor, but it surprised him. No one had expected the prey animals to fight back. Then everything exploded into chaos. More shots came from the mining buildings. The Crexani warriors roared in anger and charged toward the facility. Kate dove behind her patrol car as energy blasts lit up the mountain. The battle for Earth had begun, and the Crexani were about to learn something that would shake their understanding of strength, weakness, and what it truly meant to survive. 3 weeks had passed since the Crexani landed on Earth. They had won the battle at Copper Falls, but it had cost them more than any victory in their history. 5 Crexani warriors were dead. 12 more were injured. Commander Vextar could not understand what had happened. The humans at the mining facility had fought like nothing he had ever seen. Even when they were clearly beaten, they kept fighting. Even when they were wounded and bleeding, they found ways to hurt his warriors. Danny Lopez had collapsed a mine tunnel on 3 Crexani soldiers. He had been shot twice and was dying, but he still pulled the charges that brought down tons of rock. Amy White had turned every piece of mining equipment into a weapon. She used explosive charges to bring down buildings on Crexani warriors. She rigged trucks to explode when the aliens tried to use them. Even after she was captured, she had bitten through the throat of a Crexani guard with her small human teeth. Now Vextar sat in his command ship, studying reports from around the planet. The news was the same everywhere. Humans were not surrendering. They were not running away. They were fighting back with a determination that made no sense. Dr. Helen Price sat in a chair across from the Crexani commander. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. The Crexani had captured her from a research station in Antarctica. She was a scientist who studied life and how it survived in difficult places. Now she was trying to help the aliens understand her own species. You are confused about my people, Helen said calmly. You think we are weak because we look soft. Vextar's dark eyes studied the human female. You are weak. Your bodies break easily. Your weapons are primitive. Yet you fight as if you could win. It makes no sense. Helen smiled sadly. Commander, may I tell you about Earth? Speak, Vextar growled. Your world, Crex Prime, is terrible. Hot, poisonous, full of predators. But it has always been the same terrible place. Your people evolved to survive one type of hell. Earth is different. Earth changes. The Crexani commander leaned forward. His armor creaked softly. 65 million years ago, Helen continued, a rock from space hit our planet. It was bigger than mountains. The impact killed almost everything alive. The skies went dark for years. The temperature dropped until oceans froze. Most life died. Yet some survived, Vextar observed. Yes, but that was just one disaster. Every few million years, something terrible happens to Earth. Ice ages that last for thousands of years. Volcanoes that poison the air. Diseases that kill most living things. Earthquakes, floods, droughts, storms. Our planet has tried to kill us in every way possible. Helen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Earth's blue sky and green hills. It looked peaceful, but she knew better. My ancestors survived ice that covered half the world. They lived through diseases that killed 9 out of every 10 people. They faced floods that destroyed entire civilizations. They endured droughts that lasted for decades. Each disaster should have ended humanity. Instead, it made us stronger. Vextar was beginning to understand. Your world made you adapt or die. Exactly. But not like your world did. Your people became individually strong to survive Krex Prime. We became something different. We learned to work together. We learned to change our behavior quickly when conditions changed. We learned to never give up, no matter how bad things got. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, Colonel Paul Grant was meeting with other human military leaders. The Krexani had attacked major cities around the world: New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. They had expected quick victories. Instead, they found humans who refused to stay beaten. "Report from European Command," said General Martinez over the video link. "The Krexani took Paris, but we've been hitting their supply lines. They're having trouble keeping their forces supplied." Colonel Grant nodded. He was a career soldier who had fought in many wars. But this was different. This was about the survival of his entire species. Asian command reports. "Similar problems for the enemy," added Admiral Chen. "The Krexani are individually much stronger than us, but they don't adapt well to changing tactics. They keep using the same strategies even when they stop working." "What about casualties?" Grant asked. The numbers were terrible. Millions of humans had died in the first weeks of the invasion. But something strange was happening. Human forces were learning from each battle. They were finding ways to hurt the seemingly invincible Krexani. In Australia, humans had used forest fires to trap Krexani ground forces. In Canada, they had used winter weather that the aliens could not handle. In Africa, they had used the desert, heat and lack of water to weaken Krexani soldiers who were used to the poisonous but humid air of their homeworld. "Sir," said Captain Lisa Park, who had joined the resistance after her ship was destroyed, "we're getting reports of something interesting. Some Krexani prisoners are starting to talk to us." This surprised Grant. "I thought they never surrendered." "They don't usually, but we've been treating our prisoners well. We give them medical care. We don't torture them. Some of them seem confused by this." Back on the command ship, Dr. Helen Price continued her explanation to Commander Vextar. "Your people value individual strength above everything else," she said. "The strongest Krexani becomes the leader. The weak are left to die. This worked well on Krex Prime, where the challenges never changed." "It has worked well everywhere," Vexatar replied, but his voice sounded less certain than before. "Has it? How many worlds have your people improved after conquering them? How many Krexani inventions have made life better? How many problems have you solved with pure strength?" Vextar had no answer. The Krexani were conquerors, not builders. They took what others had made. They ruled through fear and strength. They had never needed to create or improve or adapt. Humans are different, Helen continued. We are weak individually, but strong together. When one human falls, others help them up. When we face a problem we cannot solve with strength, we solve it with intelligence or cooperation or pure stubborn refusal to quit. You are still losing this war, Vexitar pointed out. Are we? Helen asked. 3 weeks ago you expected this conquest to be over in days. How many of your warriors have died? How many times have you had to change your plans? How many human cities have you taken completely? The truth was uncomfortable. The Crexani were winning, but barely. Every victory cost them more than it should. Every day the humans seemed to fight a little smarter, a little harder. For the first time in his life, Commander Vexitar began to wonder if strength alone was enough to rule the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the first Crexani ships landed on Earth. What was supposed to be a quick conquest had become the longest war in Crexani history. War Chief Zorthak arrived with 3 more battle fleets, expecting to end the human resistance once and for all. Zorthak was even bigger than Commander Vexitar. His armor was covered in scars from 100 battles. He had conquered 12 worlds personally. He did not understand why Vexitar was having trouble with soft creatures from a pleasant world. You have grown weak, Vexitar, Zorthak said as he stepped off his command ship. These humans have made you forget what it means to be Crexani. Vexitar met his superior at the landing bay. Around them, Crexani warriors prepared for a new offensive. But these warriors looked different from the proud soldiers who had first arrived at Earth. They moved more carefully. They checked their weapons more often. They had learned to respect their human enemies. The humans are not what we expected, Vexitar replied carefully. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered. Adaptation means nothing against superior strength, Zorthak growled. You will show me these humans. Then I will show you how to crush them properly. In the ruins of Denver, mechanic Sam Rodriguez worked in a hidden underground garage. The city above had been destroyed in the early days of the invasion, but humans had built a new city in the tunnels and basements below. Sam was covered in grease and metal dust, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Hand me that power coupling, Tony," he called to his assistant. Sergeant Tony Mitchell passed him the alien device. Tony had been a regular soldier before the invasion. Now he was part of something new, a human Crexani technology team. They had been studying captured Crexani weapons and armor for months. "Are you sure this will work?" Tony asked. "Pretty sure," Sam replied, connecting human electronics to Crexani power systems. "Their technology is strong but simple. They never had to make things efficient because they had plenty of raw strength. We don't have that luxury." Sam held up his creation, a rifle that looked like a mix of human and Crexani engineering. It was lighter than a Crexani weapon, but more powerful than anything humans had built before. "The aliens build everything to be tough," Sam explained. "We build everything to be smart. Put them together, and you get something better than either one alone." Above ground, Lieutenant Nina Clark led a patrol through the destroyed streets. She moved differently than she had 6 months ago. The invasion had changed her, like it had changed all the surviving humans. She was faster, more alert, more dangerous. Her team included 5 human soldiers and 2 Crexani prisoners who had agreed to help them. The Crexani were named Kexival and Morden. They had been captured 3 months ago and should have died in prison rather than cooperate with enemies. Instead, they had chosen to fight alongside humans. Movement ahead, whispered Private Jake. Williams, the team's scout. Nina raised her hand, and the mixed team stopped moving. Through her binoculars, she could see a Crexani patrol moving through the rubble. These were not the same confident warriors who had first invaded Earth. They moved in tight formation, watching every shadow, expecting attack from any direction. Kexval, Nina whispered to one of her Crexani allies. What do you think? The alien warrior studied his former comrades. They are afraid, he said quietly. 6 months ago, Crexani warriors feared nothing. Now they fear humans who might be hiding anywhere. Good, Nina replied. Fear makes them sloppy. She made hand signals to her team. 3 humans moved left, 2 moved right. The Crexani allies stayed with her. It was a tactic that would have been impossible in the early days of the war, humans and Crexani working together as equals. The attack was swift and silent. The Crexani patrol never knew what hit them, but instead of killing all the enemies, Nina's team captured 2 alive. This was part of the new human strategy: turn enemies into allies whenever possible. Back at the TU. Crexani Command Base, War Chief Zorthak studied battle reports with growing confusion. Human tactics had evolved far beyond what should have been possible. They used captured Crexani technology better than the Crexani did. They turned psychological warfare into an art form. Most disturbing of all, they had somehow convinced Crexani warriors to join their side. This is impossible, Zorthak snarled. Crexani do not betray their own kind. Yet it is happening, Vextar replied. The humans treat their prisoners with respect. They heal their wounds. They show them mercy. Some of our warriors have never experienced mercy before. Mercy is weakness, is it? The humans who show mercy to prisoners also fight harder than any enemy we have faced. They die for each other without hesitation. They sacrifice themselves to save strangers. How is that weakness? Zorthak backhanded Vextar across the face. The blow would have killed most creatures, but Vextar barely moved. Among Crexani, violence was how superiors maintained discipline. You have been corrupted by these soft creatures, Zorthak accused. I will lead the final assault myself. These humans will learn what real Crexani strength looks like. In the Human Underground Command Center, Colonel Paul Grant met with his staff and their Crexani allies. The meeting would have been impossible 6 months ago. Humans and aliens working together to plan strategy. Now it felt natural. Intelligence reports that Zorthak is planning a major offensive, Grant said. He's bringing in fresh troops who haven't fought humans before. Kexval, who had become the leader of the Crexani defectors, spoke up. Zorthak is old-school Crexani. He believes only in strength and fear. He will not adapt his tactics like Vextar learned to do. That's his weakness, added Dr. Helen Price, who had escaped from Crexani custody and become an expert on alien psychology. Zorthak still thinks this is a normal conquest. He doesn't understand that this war has changed both our species. Grant nodded. What do you recommend? Let him attack, Kexval said. His rigid tactics will fail against human adaptability, but more importantly, his own warriors will see the failure. They will begin to question whether the old ways are the only ways. Over the next few days, the biggest battle of the war took place in the ruins of Chicago. Zorthak led 50,000 Crexani warriors against 30,000 human defenders and their alien allies. The war chief expected an easy victory against a mixed force of weak humans and traitorous Crexani. Instead, he found himself facing something new in galactic history. A combined force that fought with human adaptability and Crexani strength together. Human soldiers used Crexani weapons with deadly efficiency. Crexani defectors taught humans how to fight their former comrades. The two species had learned from each other and become something greater than either was alone. When the battle ended, Zorthak was dead and his army was scattered. For the first time in Crexani history, a major offensive had been completely defeated. But the real victory was not military. It was philosophical. Both species had proven that cooperation could be stronger than domination, that adaptation could overcome raw power, and that enemies could become friends if they were willing to change. The call for single combat came 3 days after the Battle of Chicago. Commander Vextar stood in the ruins of the city, surrounded by his remaining warriors. Across from him, Colonel Paul Grant waited with his mixed force of humans and Crexani, allies. Both armies had stopped fighting to watch this ancient ritual. "I challenge you to personal combat," Vextar announced, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "Winner takes all. Your people surrender if you lose. My people retreat if I lose." Grant knew he could not win. Vexatar was twice his size, 3 times his strength, and covered in armor that could stop bullets. But the colonel also knew that sometimes winning was not the point. Sometimes you fought to show who you really were. "I accept," Grant replied simply. The two warriors met in the center of the battlefield. Vextar towered over the human, his claws gleaming in the sunlight. Grant looked small and fragile next to the alien giant, but he stood straight and showed no fear. "You know you cannot defeat me," Vextar said. "Probably not," Grant agreed. "But I can try. That's what humans do. We try even when we can't win." The fight began fast and brutal. Vextar moved like lightning despite his size. His claws cut through Grant's armor like paper. His strength sent the human flying across the rubble. In the first minute, Grant was bleeding from a dozen wounds. But Grant kept getting up. Every time Vexatar knocked him down, the human stood back up. Every time the alien's claws cut him, Grant found a way to strike back. His small human weapons could not hurt Vexatar much, but they proved something important. Humans never stopped fighting. The battle lasted 20 minutes. By the end, Grant could barely stand. Blood covered his torn uniform. His left arm hung useless at his side, but his eyes still burned with determination. Vextar delivered the final blow, a strike that sent Grant crashing into a pile of concrete. The human lay still for a moment, and everyone thought the fight was over. Then Grant started to get up again. "Stay down," Vexatar said, but his voice was strange. "You are beaten. There is no shame in surrender." "There's no shame in losing," Grant replied, spitting blood. "But there's shame in giving up when people are counting on you." For the first time in his life, Vextar felt something he had never experienced before. He felt respect for someone, weaker than himself. This small, broken human was showing more courage than warriors twice his size. "You have fought with honor," Vextar said formally. "I declare this combat ended. You have earned the right to live." But before either warrior could say more, alarms began blaring from both human and Crexani ships. Emergency signals filled the air. Something was very wrong. Captain Jake Morrison's voice crackled over the radio from his position in orbit. "All forces, we have a problem. Something big is coming out of deep space. Really big." The alien construct that emerged from the darkness. Between Stars was like nothing either species had ever seen. It was a machine the size of a moon, covered in weapons that could destroy planets. Ancient and terrible, it had been sleeping in the outer solar system for millions of years. The sounds of war had awakened it. "I am the Harvester," the machine spoke in a voice that reached every human and Crexani mind at once. "This system has become too noisy, too chaotic. I will cleanse it of all biological life and return it to peaceful silence." Weapons that could crack moons began charging with deadly energy. The machine had decided that both humans and Crexani were problems to be eliminated. Neither species would survive the next hour unless they worked together. "All units," Grant commanded, ignoring his injuries. "Prepare for combined operations. This is not human versus Crexani anymore. This is life versus death." Vexitar looked at his ancient enemy, then at the cosmic threat approaching their world. For the first time, a Crexani commander gave orders to protect human lives. "All Crexani. Forces will coordinate with human command," he announced. "We fight together, or we die separately." The space battle that followed was like nothing in galactic history. Human ships with their clever technology flew alongside Crexani warships with their brutal firepower. Pilot Chris Murphy found himself flying a hybrid fighter built from both human and Crexani parts, with Crexani warrior Kexval as his gunner. "I never thought I'd die fighting beside a human," Kexval said as they dodged death rays from the ancient machine. "I never thought I'd die fighting beside anyone," Chris replied, spinning their ship through a gap in the Harvester's defenses. "But I'm glad it's you." Their combined attack runs began to hurt the ancient machine. Human precision and Crexani power worked together in ways that surprised both species. Where human weapons were too weak to damage the Harvester's armor, Crexani weapons could break through. Where Crexani tactics were too simple to avoid the machine's defenses, human cleverness found new approaches. The battle raged for hours. Ships from both fleets were destroyed, but they kept fighting. On the ground, mixed teams of humans and Crexani worked together to evacuate cities and protect civilians. Species that had been trying to kill each other that morning were now dying to save each other's children. The final victory came when Dr. Helen Price and a team of Crexani scientists found the Harvester's weakness. The ancient machine was powered by a core that had been running for millions of years. It was incredibly strong, but it was also old and tired. "If we can overload the power core," Helen explained, "the whole machine will shut down. But someone has to get inside and do it manually." Vexitar and Grant looked at each other. Both knew it was a suicide mission. Both knew someone had to do it. "I'll go," they said at the same time. "We'll go together," Grant corrected. "Human adaptability and Crexani strength, just like we planned." The mission succeeded, but barely. Vexitar and Grant fought their way through the Harvester's defenses together, each one covering the other's weaknesses. When Grant was too small to reach a control panel, Vexitar lifted him up. When Vexitar was too big to fit through a narrow passage, Grant went ahead and opened the way. They destroyed the ancient machine, but the explosion left them stranded in space. As they floated in the darkness, waiting for rescue, they talked about the future. "My people will not understand this," Vexitar said. "Working with former enemies, showing mercy to the weak." "Some of them already understand," Grant replied. "The ones who fought beside us today. They've seen what we can do together." "And your people? Will they accept Crexani as allies?" Grant smiled despite his pain. "Humans are good at accepting change. We've had lots of practice." Years later, the first joint human Crexani colony was built on a world both species could share. Human children played with young Crexani, learning games that neither species could have invented alone. The strongest deathworlders in the galaxy had learned that real strength came not from dominating others, but from growing stronger together. Commander Vextar, now an ambassador rather than a warrior, often visited Earth. He would stand in the rebuilt cities and remember the day everything changed. The day two species learned that the greatest predators were not those who conquered others, but those who could evolve beyond the need to conquer at all. 10 years had passed since the Pure Worlds War ended. The galaxy had settled into a new age of cooperation, but deep in the unknown regions of space, something ancient was stirring. The Eternal Empire had watched the rise of the human Crexani, alliance with growing concern. The Eternals were older than any known civilization. They had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago, before retreating to the dark spaces between stars. They were beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form long ago. To them, the young biological species were like insects, interesting perhaps, but ultimately insignificant. Emperor Valdris, oldest of the Eternals, manifested his energy form on the bridge of his vast ship. The vessel was the size of a small moon and had been drifting in the void for eons. Around him, other eternal beings flickered like living stars. "The biological species grow too bold," Valdris spoke, his voice echoing across dimensions. "They spread their alliance across our former territories. They disturb the cosmic order with their noise and chaos. Perhaps it is time for the great cleansing to begin again," suggested Eternal Nexara, her energy form pulsing with ancient power. "We could eliminate all biological life and return the galaxy to proper silence." But Valdris was more cunning than his followers. "No, direct destruction would be crude. We shall test these alliance builders. If they prove worthy, perhaps they may serve us. If they fail, they will destroy themselves." On the growing capital world of New Terra, a joint human Crexani colony, life had become surprisingly normal. The planet was a marvel of cooperation, with cities designed by both species working together. Human creativity had shaped beautiful parks and efficient transportation, while Crexani engineering had created buildings that could withstand any disaster. Young Tommy Chen walked to school, with his best friend, a Crexani child named Vorthak. Tommy was 12 years old, and had never known a world where humans and Crexani were enemies. To him, having alien friends was as natural as breathing. "My father says the council is worried about something," Tommy told his friend as they passed. A group of human and Crexani adults talking in serious voices. Vorthak, who was the same age but twice Tommy's size due to his species' rapid growth, tilted his massive head. "My parent warrior mentioned strange energy readings from deep space, very old energy signatures. At the school, their teacher was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a human xenobiologist who had spent years studying how different species could live together. Today, she looked troubled as she addressed her mixed class of human and Crexani children. "Students," she began, "today we're going to learn about the importance of being ready for challenges. Throughout history, both human and Crexani civilizations have faced tests that seemed impossible to pass." The lesson was interrupted by an emergency broadcast. All across New Terra, screens lit up with an urgent message from the Alliance Council. The face that appeared belonged to Director Marcus Wells, the human leader of the Galactic Alliance Council. "Citizens of all Alliance worlds," Wells announced, "we have received a message from an unknown source. The transmission is being broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The image changed, and suddenly, the children were looking at something that made their young minds struggle to understand what they were seeing. The being on screen seemed to be made of living light, shifting and changing like a star given consciousness. "I am Emperor Valdris of the Eternal Empire," the being spoke, its voice somehow reaching directly into their minds. "We have watched your alliance with mild interest. You biological creatures have shown unexpected cooperation for such primitive life forms." Tommy grabbed his friend's massive hand as the terrifying being continued speaking. "We offer you a test. Prove your worth, and you may continue to exist under our guidance. Fail, and you will join the countless species that came before you in extinction. You have one cycle of your star to prepare." The transmission ended, leaving the school and the entire galaxy in stunned silence. In the Alliance Emergency Command Center, leaders from dozens of species gathered in person and through holographic projection. The news was devastating. Long range. Sensors had detected massive ships moving toward Alliance space, vessels so large they defied comprehension. Admiral Sarah Kim, now in charge of the combined Alliance fleet, studied the tactical displays with growing dread. "The energy readings are off the charts. These ships are using technology we can't even understand. They're not just more advanced than us. They're operating on completely different principles of physics." General Kexval, the former Crexani warrior who now commanded Alliance ground forces, slammed his armored fist on the table. "We face them as we have faced every enemy. Together. United. We do not surrender." "But how do we fight beings made of pure energy?" asked Ambassador Thorne from the Wanderer species. "Our weapons are designed for physical targets." Dr. Helen Price, now elderly but still brilliant, had been studying the transmission data. "I think I understand what they want," she said quietly. "This isn't about conquest in the usual sense. They're testing us to see if we deserve to survive." "What kind of test?" asked Paul Grant, his hair now gray but his determination unchanged. "Look at their history," Helen explained, projecting star charts that showed the movement of the eternal ships over millions of years. "They don't conquer worlds. They eliminate entire civilizations that fail to meet their standards. But some species have survived their tests, the ones that showed something special." "What made those species special?" asked Director Wells. "Unity," Helen replied. "Every species that survived an eternal test had learned to work together with others. The Eternals seemed to value cooperation above all else." Young Tommy Chen and his classmates had been evacuated to underground shelters, but the boy could not stop thinking about the terrifying energy being. That night, he snuck out to find his friend Vorthok. "Are you scared?" Tommy asked, as they sat on a hill overlooking the city lights. "Yes," Vorthok admitted, something that would have been shameful for a young Crexani to say in the old days. "But I am less scared because you are here with me. My grandpa used to tell me stories about the first war between humans and Crexani," Tommy said. "He said both species learned that they were stronger together than apart." Vorthok nodded his massive head. "Perhaps that is what these Eternals want to see. Not individual strength, but shared strength. The children's simple wisdom would prove more valuable than all the military planning and scientific analysis happening in the command centers above. Sometimes the most profound truths came from the youngest minds." As the Eternal fleet approached Alliance space, every world prepared for a test unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But for the first time in millions of years, the Eternals would face something they had never encountered before. Not just one species trying to prove its worth, but dozens of different civilizations standing together as one. The greatest test. In galactic history was about to begin, and no one knew if biological life would survive to see another day. 5 years had passed since the Harvester War ended. The galaxy was a different place now. News of the human Crexani alliance had spread to every star system, and other species watched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Two of the most dangerous species in known space were now working together. Ambassador Vextar stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, the first joint human Crexani space station. Through the transparent walls, he could see both human and Crexani ships docking, peacefully. Engineers from both species worked side by side, building something that neither could have created alone. "Hard to believe, isn't it?" said a familiar voice behind him. Vextar turned to see Paul Grant approaching. The former colonel now served as Earth's primary liaison to the Crexani government. The scars from their single combat were still visible on his face, but he moved with the confidence of a man who had found his purpose. "What is hard to believe?" Vextar asked. "All of this," Grant gestured toward the busy station. 5 years ago, we were trying to kill each other. Now look at us. Through the station's corridors, human children ran and played with young Crexani. The sight still amazed both species. Human children were so small and fragile compared to Crexani young, but they played together without fear. They had invented games that used both human cleverness and Crexani strength. "The children adapt faster than we do," Vextar observed. "They always do," Grant replied. "My daughter speaks Crexani better than I do. She's teaching her Crexani friend how to play chess." But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about the new alliance. In the Outer Rim territories, a coalition of species had formed called the Pure Worlds Alliance. They believed that mixing different species was dangerous and wrong. Their leader was a being called Supreme Director Zalen from the Vorthak Empire. The Vorthak were one of the species the Crexani had conquered decades ago. Unlike humans, they had never recovered from their defeat. They had spent years nursing their hatred and planning revenge. Now they saw the human Crexani alliance as their chance to strike back at both species. Captain Lisa Park received the first warning while commanding a joint patrol near the Centauri system. Her ship, the Unity, was crewed by both humans and Crexani. It was one of the new hybrid vessels that combined the best technology from both civilizations. Captain called her communications officer, a young Crexani named Tekvar. "We're receiving a general broadcast from the Pure Worlds Alliance." "Put it on screen," Lisa ordered. The image that appeared showed Supreme Director Zalen, a tall creature with purple skin and burning yellow eyes. His voice was full of hatred when he spoke. "To all pure species of the galaxy," Zalen announced, "the corruption must end. Humans and Crexani have violated the natural order by mixing their societies. They have weakened themselves and created an abomination that threatens all pure life. The Pure Worlds Alliance will cleanse the galaxy of this contamination." Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She had hoped the galaxy would see the alliance as a positive development. Instead, some species saw it as a threat to be destroyed. "Captain," said her tactical officer, Human Sergeant Ben Murphy, "we're detecting ships moving toward Alliance territory. Lots of them." The Pure Worlds Alliance had been planning this attack for months. They had gathered fleets from a dozen different species, all united by their hatred of the human Crexani alliance. They believed that if they could destroy the partnership, they could return the galaxy to the way it was before. On New Harmony Station, emergency meetings began immediately. Leaders from both Earth and Krex Prime gathered to discuss the threat. But they were not alone. Representatives from other species had come to offer support. Ambassador Keela from the peaceful Zilani spoke first. The Zilani Council has voted. We will stand with the Alliance. Your partnership has brought more peace to our region than we have seen in centuries. Captain Thorne from the traitor species called the Wanderers added his voice. The Wanderers have prospered under Alliance protection. Our trade routes are safer now. We offer our fleet to defend the Alliance. Even some former enemies chose to help. A delegation from the Corvian Republic, another species the Krexani had once conquered, arrived with a surprising message. We have watched how you treat your former enemies, said General Korvax, his metal skin gleaming under the station lights. You show mercy where the old Krexani Empire showed only cruelty. You help the weak instead of crushing them. This is a better way. The Corvian Republic will fight beside you. Dr. Helen Price, now the Alliance's chief scientist, worked frantically in her laboratory. The Pure Worlds Alliance had superior numbers, but the Alliance had something better: cooperation between species with different strengths. We need to use our advantages, she explained to the Strategy Council. Humans are good at adapting quickly. Krexani are incredibly strong and tough. Our other allies each have their own special abilities. If we work together, we can overcome larger numbers. The first battle came at the frontier colony of Hope's Landing. The Pure Worlds Alliance attacked with 300 ships, expecting to destroy the small human Krexani settlement easily. Instead, they found a perfectly coordinated defense. Human pilots flew reconnaissance missions while Krexani gunners provided heavy firepower. Zilani ships used their advanced shields to protect damaged vessels. Wanderer vessels used their speed to hit enemy supply lines. Corvian ships used their heavy armor to break enemy formations. Commander Sarah Kim led the defense from her flagship, another hybrid vessel called the Defiance. Her crew included beings from 6 different species, all working together like parts of a single organism. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, reported her Krexani tactical officer. They're not used to facing coordinated multi-species tactics. Press the advantage, Sarah ordered. All ships execute Pattern 7. Pattern 7 was a tactic that could only work with multiple species. Human ships would dart in to confuse the enemy, while Krexani ships delivered devastating attacks. Meanwhile, Allied ships would provide support based on their unique abilities. It was beautiful and deadly, like a dance of war that no single species could perform alone. The Pure Worlds Alliance won some battles, but they lost more. Their ships were designed to fight individual species, not coordinated alliances. Their commanders could not adapt to the new style of warfare that the Alliance had developed. Supreme Director Zaylen grew desperate as his forces suffered defeat after defeat. In his final message, broadcast across the galaxy, his hatred was clear for all to see. "This is not over," he screamed. "Pure species will never accept this contamination. We will fight until every mixed world burns." But his words fell on deaf ears. More species were joining the Alliance every month. They had seen that cooperation created more prosperity and security than conquest ever could. The war ended not with a great battle, but with the Pure Worlds Alliance simply falling apart. Species after species abandoned Zaylen's cause when they realized the Alliance offered them more benefits than the old ways of fear and hatred. In the end, the galaxy learned what humans and Krexani had discovered during their first war. the strongest. Predators were not those who dominated others, but those who could build something better together.